Okay, I got a quick video today on the Alpinestars Tech 7 boot and some of the modifications you can make to make them a little bit more comfortable. These are my favorite boots. They occupy kind of a good price point. They're about $350 depending on where you can find them online and what version you get. Different colors are more expensive. Of course, the KTM branded ones are a little bit more than these Honda colored ones that you can get. There's also two different kinds of soles that you can get for these. You can see these are the Enduro version. They've got a little bit more of a sole to them. Pattern wise here, they still have the replaceable sole insert in the middle. I have had a pair of these resoled before. It didn't go very well. It came unglued. I would say if you're thinking about it, just buy a new pair, run them until they get chewed up and buy a new pair, because the new soles, once you resole them, just isn't going to last. Not like the original. The MX version of the boot has a flat sole like this. I haven't had the Enduro sole long enough to know how they last. I usually wear them out right where your brake lever hits the toe. Wear through the sole, of course, outside of the replaceable part, and then into the toe of the boot. And then I wear this plastic piece out where it hits the side of the bike. They do last a long time, though. I get 100 to 120 hours of riding out of a pair of these. The one thing I have found that's kind of annoying with my latest bike, the new Husqvarnas that have the long plastic panels on the side, over time these hinges will pop out. When these boots get totally worn out, this pivot just kind of wears the whole wallers out, and it pops out and you can't repair it. At that point, the boot is really done. There's no way to fix that for you or for Alpinestars to fix it. But this, when it pops out, it catches the airbox lid on the bike and it pops the lid off. And then you're riding around with your foot stuck underneath the side of the bike, which is both dangerous and terrifying. So something to watch out for. The last pair of these that I totally wore out, I actually cut this inner hinge off to get me through a ride one day once they popped out. Of course, at that point, you're giving up a bunch of ankle support. These boots, of course, when they're new like these, the hinge is pretty stiff. You can see, even though it has a hinge motion, it does also kind of bend the plastic a bit. Looks a little weird when you're sitting here, but feels fine when you're on the bike. This side, the hinge looks a little bit more conventional. They do work really well. I like the boots for their comfort. When they're new, they're marginally waterproof. I've had good luck with the feel for the shifter through the toes and everything. Some people may find them a little stiff. They really only take about an hour on the bike to break in. Buckles are good. They hold up well. I've never broken one. They never seem to open up on me unless they're adjusted too loose, which they will be once you break them in. After that, they don't seem to need much adjustment. The buckles are metal, and then this inner piece is plastic. They say they're self-cleaning. They're really not. Sometimes they'll get dirt in them, and they'll stick right there. And you really got to pound on them, and eventually they'll go in. If they're clean, they work great. Yeah. So, nice boots, hold up well. Kind of middling price point range versus the higher end $600 boots that are only marginally better protection, or the cheaper kind of $150 to $200 boots that aren't nearly as comfortable. These are all day comfortable. I wear them for racing dirt bikes, hare scrambles, and also for adventure riding. Great for that too. The toe doesn't have the little metal shield, but it's a solid toe. I've not had anything hit that, I felt was going to hurt my foot, or wish that I had a stronger toe. One of the issues that I have had, and I said modifications at the beginning of the video, is this first buckle. It's too long. There's a pocket that the tail goes into, and you can see it rotates around when it's extended like this. But when you actually have it clipped in, let's make sure my video is actually catching this. When you actually have it clipped in, it needs to be a lot tighter than that. And for me, once you start tightening this up, you can actually see in the video, hopefully, even when it's that far out, it's hitting the bottom of this pocket, which means it really can't go in and still turn. And if you buckle this up, maybe I just have small feet, I don't know, but that's not tight. And it'll loosen up and it'll pop open while you're riding. If you really try to tighten it up to where it needs to be for my size foot, and this is a size 11 boot, now you can't turn it because it's tucking into the lower end of this pocket and it's got nowhere to go. And of course, now you can see that doesn't line up at all. Yeah, it'll go in there, you can force it, but it's not ideal. So you really have to cut quite a bit off the tail. Now these don't come out. The end of these is just like these buckles. You can see, this is a little muddy, but they've got a tail on them so that once they're installed, they don't come out. There is a way around this, and I'm gonna try to do this on the video. We'll see. You have to pop it out from this side. It'll make sense once it comes out. But this is the way that you fix this problem. So you take a small screwdriver, and I'm using just the screwdriver I had lying around. It's more of a glasses and electronics repair screwdriver than maybe would be ideal. Something with a bigger handle would be nice. So all it takes is a little bit of pressure and this thing pops free. You can see the pocket that it sits in. Now you can see why you have to pop it out from the inside. The tab is really short on that side. Hopefully that's kind of visible. Fairly short on this side. So you just pull that out and then it pulls around this end. And here you can see when you adjust it, those are the hooks that are the problem. Now, yeah, if you cut those off, you could pull this all the way out. Realistically, when you're riding, that's not going to happen because it's already out here in its adjustment anyway. And at that point, it's catching on the ratchet part of it. So you really don't care about this. Now, for me, I need this to be basically as tight as it can get, for it to be tight on the front of my foot and not pop open. This thing, if I do wedge it in that far, the tail kind of tucks in and hits the side of my foot while I'm riding, and I can feel it. Drives me nuts. So you can see it's just too long for that pocket. And for it to be lined up straight, you're really looking at right here when it's all the way in. And if you can see the mark I kind of scribed in the dirt there, even if you like it out further, and you go to that line, that's still a bunch of space on this ratcheting mechanism. My guess is they just took the same part and used it on all of these, and it had to be long enough on these upper ones rather than making a separate part number down here. So roughly, you know, take that length back, mark it, whatever you feel like you need to do. I use a pair of sheet metal shears to cut through the plastic. Makes real short work of it. There's, you know, anything sharp will go through it, but these just don't take any effort. So just like that, tail's gone. Once you do it, you can't go back. But at that point, you can tuck that tail back in. And honestly, getting the buckle back in there is almost harder than getting it out in the first place. So, of course, now that there is no end on this, what I've found is you can take this out entirely because it doesn't have a snap anymore, and just insert this part into the boot, and then use your screwdriver to tuck around kind of the end of this. It is fiddly, so you got to be a little bit careful with it. And in the background, you might be able to hear my furnace is starting to kick on. So hopefully that's not going to be too distracting. So yeah, this may be a little bit of a challenge to do while I'm trying to make it visible to the camera. Like I said, this is arguably the hardest part. Okay. So now it's back in there, and And you can see this is a fairly soft plastic. You'll deform it a little bit when you pry on it. If you're careful, it won't be permanent. And you can see it's already kind of formed itself back in there. Even if you flex this side and you're prying on this side, when you've got the boot latched, the force, the load direction on this is actually pulling on this side of it, because there's a moment kind of about this latch as you're pulling. So you're really not at risk of making this any weaker by popping it in and out, as long as you're always prying on this side and on this part of the boot. So now you can tuck this all the way in, and look at that, it turns. So for comfort, for making sure this thing's tight and protecting your foot the way it should, I highly recommend doing that. It makes a big difference. So yeah, Alpinestars Tech 7, great boot, highly recommend it. That little modification makes it just a bit better. Hope you liked it. Hope the video is interesting.